Putin's war of choice displaced 10 million Ukrainians and another 10 million became refugees. Since the first day of the full-scale war, Ukrainians have been relocating to safer places. Today we will talk about what solutions have been found to comfort those who flee the country and why it is so important for Ukraine to welcome them back after the victory. Hello and welcome, this is the Solutions from Ukraine podcast, which is brought to you by the Rubryka media outlet. My name is Vladyslav Faraponov, I am the co-host of this podcast and also an analyst at Internews-Ukraine, a Ukrainian media NGO. And I'm happy to be joined by my colleague Anastasia Rudenko, who is editor-in-chief of the independent all-Ukrainian Rubryka media outlet. And before we start, let me remind you that you can support us at Patreon, at patreon.com/Rubryka. So hello Nastya, it is good that you are back.
Indeed, hello. Really excited to be back.
So today's topic is in some way not relevant to the two of us personally as we are in Ukraine, but it is relevant to many Ukrainians. And first we have to say that all of us faced a tough choice at the beginning of the full-scale war, which is approaching its first anniversary, to go somewhere or not. And I really don't want to sound rude or blame those who left the country, but I'm proud that we stayed, and the majority of our friends were, also we can say that even if they left the country, they are back now. At the same time, we have to assume that everyone's circumstances are different. So different opportunities and challenges, as always. And actually, I would say that during the war, it accelerates really so much.
Yes, this is a factor. But I would like to discuss more about the children, because they are one of the most important factors why people left the country. We don't have such statistics, but among our friends and colleagues, it is more common for women, girls left with children, as the vast majority of men are prohibited to leave the country until they are 60 years old. In that sense, Rubryka analyzed the current state of affairs of schooling in Ukraine and abroad. Talked to the head of the Ukrainian distance school, which we will explain later, and gathered alternative solutions for children who want to simultaneously get a foreign and Ukrainian education. So we have talked to those experiencing all of it. For example, Natalia is from Kiev. At the beginning of March 2022, she left with her two children for Estonia, where she is still staying. Her eldest daughter is 11 years old. In Ukraine, the girl studied in the 5th grade, was an excellent student, and played tennis professionally for 7 years. But with the beginning of a full-scale war, the previous life had to be abandoned. When they arrived in Estonia, they first tried to study online at our school in Kiev, expecting to return home quickly. Then it became clear that they needed to go to a local school. Estonia's laws prescribe that children must go to school.
Actually, it is also the same as in Ukraine.
Yes, so the family prioritized studying Ukrainian history, language and culture, and continued education in a Ukrainian school online. Her mother says that she immediately rejected thoughts about giving the child only an Estonian education. There was an option to get the homeschooling or the so-called family form of education. The mother says it is challenging to organize family education in their situation. She works full-time and has another young child. During the testing period, teachers from Ukraine sent 12 test papers that had to be completed within 3 days. At the same time, a girl didn't want to miss Estonian school because she learns everything in a foreign language anyway, so it is tough for her to catch up. She wrote all those tests, but she was under such severe stress that the mother simply did not recognize her daughter, Natalia shares with us.
Yeah, and it is really understandable. And moreover, in my view, this case, this situation is really typical. Like, especially during this horrible war, I would say no Ukrainian would refuse basically losing contact with friends, teachers, and everything they got used to do even online. So it is like a mental, psychological connection with Ukraine for them. So let's get to the education itself, because it is really an interesting issue that really impacts how those Ukrainian children, how they see the world, how they behave right now, and basically what will happen to them in a couple of years. Actually, one may ask how to continue education if neither the family form of schooling nor the usual one suits the family. So the Ukrainian Ministry of Education and Science, they offered a solution which they launched in 2020 when the COVID pandemic was in place. The solution is called All Ukrainian Online School. It is a format of the All Ukrainian School that involves actually registration on a platform with video lessons for students of all grades and all school topics from around 20 school subjects. Actually, for example, I know actually some teachers who were recording those videos for this platform, and I remember that actually my younger brother, like he was watching this online school, but for him actually back then it wasn't really necessary because he was studying in his school online. So basically it was created in 2020 as an opportunity for those whose school basically cannot operate online properly. So the platform allows children to take tests and also write independent and basically some test papers. Like child can create a schedule of his or her educational process on the platform, but like its disadvantage, I would say, is that the resource it has been designed more as a structured database of educational materials. So a student will not be able to communicate with his or her teacher as it usually happens. And more importantly, in that context, in my view, it is that there is no communication between his or her peers in the classroom.
Absolutely. So to give you a sense of what is going on with the case, we would like to once again state how much of the population left the country. Today, millions of Ukrainians have either lost their homes physically or are unable to return there because of constant enemy shelling and destroyed infrastructure. In addition, right now there is constant power outages since October, when Russia first attacked Ukraine's energy infrastructure. So, despite the fake effect that a large portion of Ukrainians returned home, it is not the case even for half of them. As of late December last year, more than 7.8 million refugees from Ukraine were registered in Europe. More than almost 7 million citizens became internally displaced in our country, and more than half of them have been in this status for more than 6 months.
Yeah, so, and it is also interesting in that context, like from a historical perspective, that the war is not a migration reason. it is a time when people are evaluating their values, and they want to get back home, as they have nearly lost their psychological connection with their places of living, their places of childhood, and others. And I would say it is also one of the reasons why we hear every time we talk to our friends and colleagues who are abroad, like that they are looking forward to the time when they either can go home safely, or they just basically come to Ukraine for a short period of time and perhaps go actually go back again. But still, like all of them, they are dreaming about this moment, and I would say it can be also because of they are really proud of how Ukraine's armed forces are resisting to the Russian aggression. So therefore, the solution can be seen as the following: understand and support. In school, in the streets when Ukrainians go protesting, and in many other places. There is a saying in Ukraine which was developed only during the war. Actually, no matter basically what you are doing, only the impact of your action matters. So, like, it means that no one will blame you, like if you are in the occupied actual territory or not, if you are in the army or not. Everything that really matters right now is how your actions are bringing us closer to the victory.
I want to tell that we have asked a psychologist how to cope with the stress and how people react to the war. Lyudmila Romanenko, a psychologist and supervisor of the Center for Psychosocial Rehabilitation of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy of Ukraine, one of the oldest universities in the country, says that the most difficult includes teenagers, simply because in addition to all the challenges of forced migration, the difficulties of the teenage period are added. Besides, if a child does not know the language of the country where they moved, this becomes an additional stressful factor. The second category comprises people from active combat areas who saw shelling, destruction, and perhaps death, were under occupation, or had been hiding in cold basements for weeks. For them, adaptation in a new place is complicated by a previous traumatic experience which they haven't coped with yet.
Yes, and I would just add that this psychologist, which actually Nastya was talking about, she lived and worked with the displaced persons in the frontline town in the Luhansk region for 8 years. So it is also one of the reasons why her opinion is credible in this matter. And after the full-scale invasion, she left their home, and now they live actually near the capital of Ukraine. So she talks about the challenges of the forced evacuation, not only from an expert point of view, but also based on her own experience. And according to her, like, refugees say that people in foreign countries sincerely try to support Ukrainians. But it seems that people in Europe in particular, and I would say even in Europe, because like we tend to think that actually Europe understands the challenges that the Russian aggression actually posed to the continent in general and for the Europeans. But she says, like, in particular in Europe, people cannot fully understand what Ukrainians feel. And because of this, the feeling of loneliness and in some way detachment from the roots only grows.
Well, that's a valid point. Indeed, those who have not been directly affected by the war cannot fully feel what you feel. Not because they are heartless, of course, but simply because they do not have the relevant experience. So she gave some pieces of advice to those seeking comfort abroad. It sounds like it to integrate into the community's life to the extent that it is comfortable for people and their child. And do little things that will support you with inner strength and thus create a resource for adaptation.
Yeah, so obviously, we can think of some basic things in that regard, like parents perhaps cannot demand having super success in studies of their children, as it is really hard to get to know new people at once under stress and other issues, not to mention the language and others. So Nastya, basically, what kind of solutions can we offer to this problem, to this case?
First of all, support Ukrainians wherever they are. It means abroad, in Ukraine, financially if you can, verbally. The same applies to assisting Ukrainians in arranging some protests to advocate for more aid to Ukraine and more sanctions against Russia. Even many big companies still operate in Russia. So the war is not over. And just today, as we are making this episode, Russia launched 70 missiles across Ukraine.
Yes, so stay with us and support us at Patreon. It will help us produce more independent actual podcasting and reporting, which will result in more help to Ukraine win this hard but important war.